All right, and we are live.
Cool.
Okay, guys, so welcome to the pregame interview for our game of Masks. Are you
Thank
guys
you
excited?
for having us.
Woo. 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 Okay, so what we're going to start off with is we're just going to kind of introduce ourselves. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go first. You guys already know who I am, but I'm Nathan, and I'll be the GM for this game, or Game Master. I've been reading comic books since I was like a little kid, so I'm like way into comics. So I'm super excited to run a comic book game. I haven't run a comic book game in like over 10 years, and the last one I did, I died very quickly, which you don't have to worry about for this game. But I've been gaming for about 15 years. This will be my first time GMing, but I think this will be a really awesome thing for us. Some of my goals as a GM are to tell a compelling story. That's going to be my main thing here. I want us to all, this isn't going to be my story that I'm putting you guys into. This is going to be our story that we all kind of create together. The biggest thing to remember about this is I'm going to be a fan of your characters, just as anybody else like reading a comic book. So keep that in mind as we play, and I want you guys to win.
As like an NPC, or as like a fourth wall kind of thing?
No, just as like me, Nathan. I'm a fan of your guys'.
I get it.
As your guys' characters. Yeah. Not this is not game terms or anything. Literally, I'm just going to be a fan of your characters, and I want you guys to win. Like
Cool.
Story, but in the end, I'm not going to like make all your characters die or anything, unless you want me to. Like,
Not
hey,
today.
I want to start a new character, so kill me. So we'll just kind of go around the table and everybody can introduce themselves. So we'll go ahead and start with you, John.
Oh man, on the spot. No, so I'm John. I could not possibly put a number year-wise how long I've been into superheroes and comics and gaming in general. This will be a first for me playing this style as well. I come from normally like a D&D, like a D20 style background where you've got hit points and that kind of thing. So definitely going to be an interesting switch. I don't know. What else should we say?
Why don't you just talk about what are your goals here? Like, what are you looking forward to in the game, or what do you want to accomplish in this game?
This is going to come off a little weird, but I would like to accomplish a full story arc, because that generally seems to be what, a group gets together and then the schedules and the group just stops.
Yeah, you get like three sessions into a game, and then everybody's kind of not into it anymore, or just stuff comes up. Yeah, I get you.
Exactly.
That's a good goal to have. I like that.
So I don't know, seen it through to the end kind of thing. If we even like the end question mark, like yeah.
Yeah, the game will pretty much. I have about 6 story arcs all kind of planned out, so it'll go on for as long as you guys want it to.
Aside from that, from what I understand about this game, it lends itself largely to character development. Mm-hmm. So like individual arcs are going to be fun to watch as well.
Yes.
Aside from that, I'm just here to play. I'm here to enjoy it. No major goals to speak of.
All right. I mean, wanting to complete a story sounds like a pretty big feat, especially for anybody who's like gamed before. Just finishing one story arc can be really difficult, so I think that's a really good goal to have. All right. Meg, what about you? Or I guess I already introduced you, but
Yes, I'm Meg, and I'd say I sadly did not really read comic books growing up, and I'd only just recently got into games, which playing D&D and going. I love it. It's a lot of fun. I know those rules a little bit, but this is new, this whole structure. But I think I've listened to a few podcasts that use something very similar. So I'd say my goal would be it's a lot of fun. I've listened to a few. I don't know if we're allowed to say what podcasts
Yeah,
we
of
do
course.
like, but I love the Adventure Zone, and they just it's so fun just listening to them have a fun time, but also like take it seriously, but not really. And I'm looking forward to getting to be a part of a story.
that's awesome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the couple games that you have run in D&D?
Well, one would be, I guess we went through the whole book, almost the whole book of, I think the Frost Giants one, the book, I forget what it's called, the Storm King's Thunder or something. We were getting pretty close to the end, and it just kind of fell apart. I think we had too many players. I think we had about like 9 people that played, and it was so hard to get everybody to get together.
Group, yeah.
It's huge, and so it kind of fell apart. And then right now we're playing a game that our roommate, he's writing, so it's not really a book or anything, but it's just having a lot of fun, and him just winging it. We're all winging it.
Mm-hmm.
Spend a little bit too much time getting distracted and not really playing 100% the whole time, but I'm looking forward to it.
Your 9-player session, was that like a one shot, just you played one game, or was that like a couple sessions that you were doing?
Which one? The second one?
The one that you said there was like 9 players.
Oh, that was like, oh gosh, we played like 10 times or so. Yeah.
With 9 people. Wow, that's a feat.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty good.
You had to wait so long.
Looking at John's face right now, yeah, like 9 is a lot of people. It's like not only just to play a game, but to get 9 people all in one room, like 10 times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty difficult. I can't, this is my first GM. I can't imagine running a game with 9 separate players or 8 players. That's a lot.
It'd be like a kick. You get to kick, and then like you have to wait 20 minutes, and then you get to do another kick or a punch. I don't know.
Well, that's one thing that's kind of cool about this game. This game actually lends itself to there's not really an order in which things happen. It'll happen in the way that the story kind of flows. You know, so if 3 people are out eating pizza and one person's like fighting someone, well, then that one person is just going to make a bunch of moves over and over again. We're going to do moves about you guys eating pizza. So. But yeah, so what about you, Walter? Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to us?
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Walter. Well, my background as far as like into comic books, I never really read comic books as a kid. I was more into mangas, like Naruto, Bleach, Trigun, all the classic 90 mangas. And I kind of stopped around like high school, and I feel like this is a good opportunity to try to get back into more storytelling and like superhero-esque. I guess what's in now, and I want to be able to like communicate with more people who are really into that stuff. And I want to be part of like a really cool story and try to get out of my shell and like try something new, and then hopefully want to do more of this over and over again. I tried D&D with a few friends, but I had a really terrible DM because this was all our first time trying that, and it went terrible, and never really picked it up again. And I want to try with some more experienced people who are really into it and like learn how to get into character and be the person that they are in the game.
And did you guys only do like one session, or did
we did like 2 sessions?
Yeah.
And then that's when we were kind of like, yeah, screw this. We weren't really into it.
Yeah, especially with something like D&D where character creation just gets so out of hand with how much math you need to do when you're like starting a new character. Yeah. That's another thing I like about this. There's like no math at the beginning of the game. You don't roll for stats or anything. It's just you are the stats that it says, and then you just go from there. So.
Yep.
Why don't you tell us a little about what did you say your favorite mangas were and why you liked them?
Oh my God, One Piece. One Piece definitely was like One Piece and Naruto were my favorite mangas.
And One Piece is the pirate guy one, right?
Yeah, Pirate Luffy. Yep.
Yeah, something I've been listening to says there's like over 1,000 episodes of that show already.
Something like that. Yeah,
it's crazy. Like to get into that show now, there's just so much backlog that you'd have to like watch. So why don't you tell us some things that you liked about One Piece?
Well, I like that it was really quirky, and just like I was able to connect with Luffy a lot more. Just kind of like he was a orphan. I wouldn't say orphan. Like, I guess he was like I'm trying to remember. It's so long ago. But I guess he was a pirate. He ate a dragon fruit, which gave him most of his powers to be rubbery, and the origin behind the dragon fruit, I think it was called. I might be wrong, but each fruit gives you a different power, and then he got the power to stretch, and he's able to like kind of use that and loot to his advantage, and kind of met really cool characters along the way. And what I liked about Naruto is just it was fucking ninjas.
So you like ninjas?
Yeah.
All right, well, cool. I'll put some ninjas in the game.
Now, which are better, pirates or ninjas?
That's tough. I kind of like pirates just because they're ruthless.
Everything's better with ninjas. I think he gets the reference.
He's like,
there's a popular like one-shot kind of game, board game called was it Pirates versus Ninjas, where you have to fight about delivering a pizza. And in that movie Gamers, remember he's teaching somebody how to play that.
Can we play this? Is this all right? No.
Yeah.
No, I'm unfamiliar with it, but it sounds amazing.
You said you saw the movie Gamers, didn't you? The Pile of Dead Bards? No, I thought that.
No.
No?
I
Oh,
saw
okay.
it.
We gotta watch that movie then.
All right.
Wow. Well, I'm gonna cut that out, but probably not. All right. What about you, Kyle?
Hi,
Hey, Kyle.
I'm Kyle. I have absolutely no clue what I'm doing. But I love to play games, and I want to learn, have fun. I'm used to playing like structured games, so this is going to be something new. Since this is not structured very much, we kind of have freedom.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's about it.
So, do you have any sort of like? I mean, you seem to watch the movies and stuff, though, right? So
Yeah.
Do you have
Oh, yeah. As far as superheroes go, yeah, I have interest in that. I've never really read comics too much, but I enjoy the films and that stuff.
Did you watch any of like Justice League, Static Shock, any of that, like when those were on? Batman animated series?
No, not really.
No?
Fortunately.
What kind of structured games have you played before? Like, I know it doesn't sound like you've done any kind of role playing game,
No.
but just in general,
no,
like
not.
stuff that you've enjoyed.
Portrayal on House on the Hill. I don't know. Risk, Access Allies. Any game that takes longer than like 2 hours to play, and you actually have to focus somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing stupid like Trouble or anything like that.
Don't you hate on Trouble?
Getting in trouble. Yeah. So, these big long games like that, you're playing with other people. So, what part of playing with other people in that sort of aspect do you enjoy?
Surprises, I guess. You can never know exactly what's going to happen.
Even when you
Which is
think you
good.
know one of your
Even
friends.
when you think you have it all figured out. you
Somebody
do
flips
not.
the table.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's cool. I'm glad we were able to get that. There's a lot of good info on there. So I'm going to keep this little. Keep it away from the microphone a little bit, right? So we'll go ahead and move on to the next part of our introduction here. So, like I mentioned at the beginning, the game that we're going to be playing is called Masks: A New Generation. This is a role-playing game about young superheroes. So we're not going to be playing adults that have, fully realized their powers. We're going to be playing.
Is that
like
the old generation?
the old generation? Actually, there's multiple generations. This is just the new one.
Oh.
Ooh, we'll get into the generations. Don't worry. We'll generation
How
the shit out
new
of you,
is this
son.
generation?
This is think like mid 2000s to now is how new your generation of superheroes is. A good way to think of this is Teen Titans meets like Sky High. If you guys ever watched that movie Sky High, which is like one of my favorite superhero movies, but don't tell everybody. Anyway,
Don't tell anybody.
Don't
Just-
tell anybody.
all right.
Just everybody on this podcast.
Yeah.
Right. So this game is very conversation driven, which means as the story progresses, the story is going to kind of come into its own, and everybody's going to have a hand in creating the world. Right. So I have kind of a baseline of what the world is going to be, but I've left a ton of room, intentionally left things blank for us to fill in. As the game progresses, and even as our session today progresses, we're going to start making stuff up and kind of give us a feeler how that's going to be going forward. There's no hit points in this game unless you want there to be. There is a hit point system, but every podcast that I've listened to that runs the hit point system, it doesn't kind of generate as much fun as running without it. So I recommend doing without it. The system's called Harm, and you take a couple harms, but like that gets your characters too close to death, and I think as teenagers we'll kind of avoid that.
I haven't even gotten to prom yet.
Right? So there's no hit points, no dying, and the goal here is to create a compelling story. Right? Kind of everything that we've all said. We love storytelling, so that's the main goal of this. Are there any questions about the game that you guys have right now that you were kind of asked you guys to think about? Yeah,
I've
you
got
don't
a
need to raise
question.
your hand. Nobody can see you raise your hand.
I had one question that it wasn't really clear in the sheet that I was looking at. It was saying you would say like pick two of this, but then it had I think in conditions or
Mhm.
something it just said conditions, and then it was like I guess the first one was afraid. And
Yeah, afraid,
I-
angry.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I mean, I do like the idea of, I chose afraid, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we need to pick a certain amount or.
I think they.
what that's
So
about.
that system is sort of like your hit point system as the game goes on. So you'll mark those as different stuff happens in the game. You don't really like start off with one. Like your character won't be perpetually afraid
So
throughout the game.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they work more like modifiers on your roll.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be
So it's like-
after you if you have all 5 marked, your character will be knocked out. But just having 1 or 2 of them will modify your dice rolls as you do different actions and stuff.
Gotcha.
Yep. So like I said, that's kind of your pseudo hit points in this game, where getting hurt more would affect you being able to punch because you're hurt. This is your emotions and the way that you feel affects the actions that you take.
Okay. And
Right.
what would cause, I guess in D&D, whenever your hit points are getting pretty low, you start thinking about, oh no, I need to get back. I need to move back. I need to fix myself.
Yeah.
And what is, if we don't have hit points?
So each condition will have a way to clear it. And clearing conditions: to clear angry, hurt someone or break something important; to clear afraid, run from something difficult; to clear guilty, make a sacrifice to absolve your guilt; to clear hopeless, fling yourself into easy relief, and that could be like your character does drugs, your character like makes out with somebody, like that, stuff like that. Or to clear insecure, take foolhardy action without talking to your team. So basically jumping into a fight without telling anybody, like, let's go.
Okay.
Right? So that's how you'll clear it later. Plus there's different things, like another character can comfort and support you, and if they succeed on that roll, they'll comfort and support 1 or 2 of your conditions away. Yep. Anybody else have any questions about anything yet so far, or about storytelling in general? Because we will get into more of that stuff later too, so we are going to go over that part again later today too. But any questions about, I guess that's just been a little bit more specific about how we're going to create our story as the game goes on, or anything? No?
I think we're good.
Nothing right now.
I kind of cheated. I've been listening to what's it, Nerds on a Roll.
How dare you.
The Nerds on a Roll
Yeah,
podcast.
that one's pretty good.
How many episodes are you in right now?
I'm only like 4 deep at the moment, so not even.
But there's a lot of
scratching
story.
the surface.
But there's a lot of story that they tell in the first like 4 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna start exploring the different playbooks, and the playbooks in this game are basically like your classes, whereas D&D would have like fighter, wizard, stuff like that. These are gonna be your playbooks. So I've handed you guys the big pile of papers right there. You don't need to pass them out because we are gonna kind of go by them one by one. I was hoping to get to a copier earlier today, and I couldn't make it. So for me in the book is page 93, because my actual book, which by the way I recommend
Picking one up.
buying the book. Yeah, it's about $30 if you buy it from the website, or you can buy the PDF only version for like $8.99.
Did you just advertise?
Maybe. I mean, I bought mine, so. But last year they were running like a 30% off sale if you typed in a certain code. So I used that and got a pretty good deal on it. So I've actually got them in the same order that I'll be reading from the book. So the first character is called the Beacon, and the description is, you don't have to do this. You could probably have a safe, decent, simple life. It'd be nice, but come on, superpowers, aliens, wizards, time travel. You're out of your depth, but who cares? This is awesome. Everybody should try it. Playing the Beacon. Hopeful, excited, understanding, human. The Beacon is the most directly mortal and the least strange of all the playbooks. They haven't been shaped by anything else. They could choose to leave this life behind if they wanted, which is exactly the point. They're here because they want to be here. You want to do this, and that gives them a purity compared to other characters. You can expect NPCs to tell you that you don't really belong here. After all, you don't have those extras that most people associate with superheroes. A central conflict for the Beacon is proving yourself and making the case for why you actually belong. Ultimately, your character is all about their drives. Those will give you objectives, things to aim towards and try to do. So make sure you pick drives that really interest you. Trying to accomplish your drives might lead you into trouble, just as it might lead you to triumph. But they'll always push you towards that key conflict. Do you actually deserve to be here? And that's exactly what you want. So the next page actually just has kind of the character's moves and stuff, which will no powers and not nearly enough training, straight up creeping, pretty much a superhero, and suck at domination. Domitian? I actually don't know how to pronounce that. Domitian. I'm not sure. We'll figure it out later. But a good example of characters who, in popular culture, who are the beacon are Artemis and Arrowette from Young Justice, Felicity Smoke from Arrow, if anybody's ever watched Arrow, or Stephanie Brown, which is a spoiler from the Batman comics, or a character, think any character that like really shouldn't be there and probably doesn't have enough powers to be tangling with somebody like Superman. Basically, is that type of character is the beacon, and his goal is he's got different drives, and the drives are listed on there, and as you complete those will kind of power up your character. The next character we've got is the Bull. You're big, strong, and tough. You know what fighting really is, and you're good at it, sure, but you've got a soft side too. But you only show that to people you care about most. Everybody else, they can eat your fist. Gruff, tough, passionate, big-hearted. The Bull's a heavy hitter with big feelings. They get into a lot of fights, both interpersonal and super heroic, especially thanks to their signature move, a Bull's Heart. A lot of the time, they'll be angry. They're a big, gruff wrecking ball, and you should have fun smashing them into things. Get into fights, emotional and physical. Be blunt. That's the way of the Bull. Your biggest asset in playing the Bull is your core move, the Bull's Heart. It's your way of signaling to yourself and the whole table that you're interested in scenes with particular characters. Pay attention to it and try to get those bonuses as much as possible. Every playbook's moment of truth matters and may shift the direction of the character, but the Bull's in particular is significant. The Bull was made to be a fighter by someone else, and when you use your moment of truth, the story of the Bull's origins become way more important. Use your moment of truth when you know that you want to inject that element of a backstory into the game moving forward. And we'll get into the moment of truth after we finish each character's individual playbook. Some good characters to think of that would be a Bull type are Superboy from Young Justice, X-23, if any of you guys have seen the Logan movie, which she'd be that little girl. That'd be a good example. But Wolverine would be an example of a Bull as far as an adult character. So yeah, basically a character that's kind of a big brute, kind of hard-headed, doesn't really think before they do stuff kind of character. The next character is the Delinquent. You've got these cool powers, but everyone keeps telling you how to use them. You know what they need? Someone to give them trouble, to make sure they don't always get their way. And hey, you're just the perfect hero to do it. Playing the Delinquent. Rebellious, joking, attention-seeking, and manipulative. The Delinquent is the class clown, or the punk with a stash of weed, or the rebel without a cause. They're the spoiler, most often just because they can be, more than out of any other particular desire. They trick other people, they mess with people, they cause problems. They cause problems. That said, the Delinquent isn't an excuse to be an annoying jerk. They cause trouble because it's how they get attention, and it's how they deal with problems. But that doesn't mean they're without deeper feelings or goals that make them more human. The Delinquent veers between being selfish and being a proud member of the team, and their moves point them in that direction. Mary Contrary and I Don't Care What You Think are both about messing with and ignoring the words of others, especially your teammates. While Troublemaker is about helping your team, albeit in destructive ways, and What Team is about both. The Delinquent bounces back and forth over that line, over and over, so play in that space and have fun with it. Remember, always, that ultimately, you're part of this team for a reason, that you wanted to be here. So simply ditching them all is never an option, not least because it means your character would probably retire, which is kind of like dying in this game, except you can just meet up with them later. Kind of an afterlife. Some characters, what was that?
No 401ks.
No 401k. There's nope. So some characters to think about for the Delinquent would be like Arsenal from Young Justice, or trying to think, like in Dexter's Laboratory, like Mandark. He's only mean to like one person, but when push comes to shove, when it's time to save the world, Mandark helps out, right? The next character is the next character is the Doomed. Something about your powers dooms you. It's just a matter of time before your doom comes for you. Until then, though, you've got a nemesis who needs fighting in a world that needs saving. After all, it's better to burn out than fade away. Tragic, melodramatic, powerful, driven, the Doomed is a character best served by long-term play, even though their story is about time pressure and not knowing how much time they have left. They're the only character who starts with a clear-cut enemy, their nemesis, and a dangerous timer on their character's lifespan. They're also the only character that explicitly faces death by the end of their story. As a result, adding a doomed to your campaign inherently adds a level of drama, gloom, and danger to your game. Death, while not a constant element, is now on the table. If you're playing the doomed, you may feel a desire to avoid using your doom signs or to stay away from the triggers that advance your doom track. Don't. Embrace those pieces of your character. Filling your doom track gives you doom signs. Doom signs give you more power, and that power demands a purpose. By default, you can rely on your nemesis to provide you with a purpose, something to strive against, but you can aim for other things too. Be ready to pay a lot of costs along the way to accomplishing your goals, whether through your sanctuary or other means. Some characters to, probably the main one, the easiest one to think of that is that would be the doomed is Raven from Teen Titans. If you guys ever watched that show, Raven's pretty clearly doomed. She's marked by her dad. She has like unlimited power, basically. Did you ever watch Teen Titans, Meg? You're looking a little confused over there.
I have not seen it.
Not?
I'm so sorry.
Okay. If you watch one episode of Teen Titans, any episode, it pretty much, and just look at Raven, it'll pretty much describe like Raven in a nutshell.
You can just look at her too.
Yeah. Or there's Justice League versus the Teen Titans is a movie that came out last year. It's about an hour and a half, and Raven is basically like the center of it. So if you just want to watch that movie too, if you're interested in this character, the Doomed, I would recommend just watching that movie, and it'll tell you all about what the kind of a backstory of the Doomed is. The next character is the Janus. Wake up, breakfast, school, work, homework, sleep, repeat. It burns you up being stuck in this life, unable to make a real difference. That is, until you put on the mask. And then you can become someone else, a hero. Stressed, responsible, dual, heroic. The Janus is two people in one, and their struggle is about balancing that paradox. You have your regular life and all its responsibilities on one side, and all your super heroic life and all its madness on the other. And ultimately, you don't want to give up either one. But they both pull and pull at you, building up tension until you feel like you're going to snap. That's okay, though. Your story is all about tension and overcoming it, especially thanks to the people around you. Cultivate relationships with NPCs and PCs. NPC is non-player character. PC is player character, by the way. I don't think I explained that. They're all about your overarching story. Pay close attention to your mask. When do you wear it, and when do you take it off? Who knows about your secret identity, and who doesn't? For you, more than any other playbook, it matters which overt guise you're in, which mask you're wearing, and which face you're presenting to the outside world. Some easy inspirations for the Janus. Spider-Man is kind of like the biggest one. When Spider-Man is a kid, he's constantly torn between his life as a school student, life with his life with his aunt and uncle. Yeah, shut up, John. That was pretty bad. Like Batman with his parents. Anyway, and he's constantly torn between these lives of being a superhero and keeping it from his family, keeping it from his schoolwork and stuff. And Batgirl would be another good example of a character like this. Let me get some water real quick.
Oh, wow.
You have a coaster for that.
For this bit of water?
Yeah.
The legacy. You're the latest in a storied, heroic lineage. A family that shares a name and a cause. Now everybody is watching and waiting to see if you've got what it takes to uphold that tradition. No pressure, right? Capable, impressive, burdened, famous. The legacy comes from a long line of superheroes, meaning they have a super heroic family, either biologically related or connected through their shared legacy. Their story is about the support of that family and the pressure of carrying on the family name. They have many benefits and advantages that other PCs, player characters, might not have. The name of their legacy itself probably carries weight with the city, but at the same time, the expectations and responsibilities placed on them are even higher. The legacy has a constant source of support and connection in the other members of their legacy. Returning to those characters on a regular basis is an important part of the legacy cycle. If you don't spend much time with them, you can expect them to purposefully force their way into your life. The legacy often inherently pushes into a position of authority on the team. They're probably from one of the most established traditions of heroism in the city. Run with it. Putting still more responsibility on the legacy only further highlights your issues and gives you even more chances to triumph. Some characters to think of for the legacy would be like Kid Flash, which Flash's sidekick. Robin necessarily wouldn't be a legacy character for Batman, but the other Robins would be a legacy character for the other Robins. So you've got like you've got Dick Grayson Robin, who would not be considered a legacy, but Jason Todd, the next Robin, would be considered a legacy character to Dick Grayson, and then Tim Drake would also be considered a legacy character to Dick Grayson and Jason Todd. Another character would be any Green Lantern, really, would be considered a legacy character.
Would you consider Superman a legacy character?
I would not, because he's the first of his line, right? So Superboy could kind of be considered a legacy character to Superman, but since Superman is there's no hero that he's learning from, right? There's nobody that is teaching him to be a hero or teaching him his powers or anything. Supergirl might be a legacy character, sort of, while not. She is carrying the super name and the family crest, so Supergirl could be considered a legacy character for Superman.
Okay, cool.
All right. The Nova. You're a font of power. Channel it, and you can remake the world into exactly what you want. Unleash it, and you can do miracles. It's wonderful and terrifying. Lose control for even a second, and other people get hurt. Powerful, unrestrained, but vulnerable and destructive. The Nova is power incarnate, capable of affecting the world and changing reality on a level their teammates can't possibly match. But that power comes with an enormous risk, both to the Nova and to the world around them. The Nova's abilities are intentionally some of the most open-ended of any playbook. They can do nearly anything, though not without difficulty or cost. Chances are, if the Nova wants to do something with their superhuman abilities, there's a way they can twist their abilities to do that thing after they unleash their powers, which is a play move that we'll get into later, of course. And if they miss when unleashing their powers, their consequences will be much more severe than when the beacon misses while firing an arrow. The Nova is particularly focused on each moment, each individual problem immediately at hand. They're so powerful, chances are good that they can at least try to overcome any obstacles with their powers right then and there. As a result, this isn't a playbook for the long-term planning or preparation. You're explosive, a battering ram of power. Don't be too afraid of conditions, because they might feed right into your flares, giving you still more power to just make things happen instantly. But that's your story, balancing the impossible, trying to keep a rein on your power and guide it in the right direction. Some example of characters for the Nova would be like Jean Grey from X-Men, Miss Martian from Young Justice, if you've ever watched it. Those would probably be the two like biggest. A character with just like overwhelming power that doesn't quite know how to control it, and rather than try to control it, every time they're faced with a problem, they just use their full suite of powers, like every time.
Cool.
The next character is the Outsider. You're not from here. Your home is an amazing place, full of beauty and wonder, but there's something to them, something special that you're missing back home, something human. So yeah, you'll be hanging around, at least for now. Strange, curious, naive, and arrogant. The Outsider isn't from here, but that won't stop them from creating a life for themselves right here on this planet. At least for now. But can they find a place here? Will they even want to once they get to know the world more? Or will they answer that siren call and go home? When you make an Outsider, feel free to go nuts with your homeland. You might be an alien, absolutely, but you might also be from a parallel world, or from the future, or from a digital realm, whatever. The key is, wherever you're from, it has to be substantially different from Earth. And it says Halcyon City, but I've already named our city. We'll get to that later. To the point that you don't even fit in, even when you try. A crucial thing to remember when playing the Outsider is that you aren't incompetent. You understand more than enough to get by in your new home. What you don't understand are the more complicated elements of the world around you. Pick a few key areas of a different philosophy and psychology as you play your Outsider. You can add all the weird pieces you want. By people never let their feet touch the ground. We can't see the color green, and we hear emotions. But focus on the important and difficult questions, like your people actively dismissing the idea of incarcerating criminals instead of reforming them, or believing that those with great power are required to follow the will of the people. So some characters to kind of think of as the Outsider would be like Starfire from Teen Titans. Miss Martian actually would fit here. Basically any character that's kind of like an alien not from this world kind of character would be the outsider. The outsider's name kind of lends itself. It's kind of easy, right? Kind of explains what it is right there in the title.
Would you even twist like somebody of such a different culture, even within the same world? So like Aquaman, kind of thing. Would that be that kind of character, or would you find that falls somewhere else?
I mean, Aquaman's origin story is that he was born here and then taken to Atlantis.
Okay.
Right.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah, so
But,
Aquaman's character wasn't born in Atlantis. His character's father was from here, and his character's mother was from Atlantis. And so he was kind of born of both worlds, but his mother didn't take him down to Atlantis when he was born, so he fully grew up but lived with his dad. His dad was a lighthouse operator, I think, if I remember the story right. But yeah,
I'm just thinking between that one and like something like Wonder Woman, where it's
Wonder Woman would totally make sense.
okay.
Yeah, Wonder Woman
That's
could
far
definitely.
enough away from the rest of society and what we know as the world. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, that would totally be a good fit.
Cool.
Yep. The next character is the protege. You've proved yourself to be an experienced hero. They think you've got what it takes. They've been training you for a while, and now you've got to decide: do you want to be with them, or will you find your own path? Playing the protege: focused, well-trained, driven, and unsure. The protege is defined by two things: their training and their mentor. A protege has a level of skill and preparation beyond nearly any of the other player characters. Even the legacy wasn't necessarily as well trained as the protege. The protege might have innate powers, sure, but they were also guided in how to use those abilities, and more by their mentor. That also means they're devoted to being a superhero in a way that none of the other PCs may be. A protege made at the start of play has been training for quite some time to get into this life. That being said, the question before a protege is always whether this is really what they want, and more specifically, if they want to wind up being their mentor. For better or for worse, the relationship between you and your mentor is always one wherein your mentor wants you to turn out similarly to them. Maybe not exactly the same, but close. And you have to decide if that's really what you want. Regardless of everything that they've given you, you might not want their life once you understand what it really means. Pay close attention to your labels, to your choices for which labels your mentor denies and embodies. In addition to telling you the kind of person your mentor likely is, they tell you the kind of person your mentor wants you to be. Make sure you spend time with your mentor. Return to them. Ask them for help and input. You might butt heads with them. You might resist what they choose for you, but they matter to you as well. They gave you what you needed to become the person you are today, and your relationship with them is the source of your dramatic arc. They might seek you out, but you should also do the same. Now, the character for the protege, like I said, the other two Robins wouldn't necessarily be a legacy character, but the first Robin, Dick Grayson, would definitely be a protege for this because he's learning directly from Batman. Cyclops could be considered a protege in X-Men underneath Charles Xavier. If you guys have ever watched Batman Beyond, even though he's kind of taking on that name, Batman, he would still be considered more of a protege character because he's just kind of learning and learning and learning. And then Aqualad would be another one from Young Justice. He's started off in Atlantis, and he was learning powers before he ever actually met Aquaman. So the last character, I believe the last one, unless you guys want to get into some of the more the more difficult characters, is the Transformed. You can recall a time not too long ago when you looked normal, when you didn't feel their stares, when you didn't hear their gasps, when no one thought of you as a monster. Those were the days, huh? Troubled, titanic, grotesque, lamentable. The Transformed used to be human, without any powers or superhuman elements, until something happened and they were changed, obviously and permanently. They might be a cyborg or a strange monster or made of electricity, just as long as they're strange and inhuman with no way of hiding it. The Transformed story is about what you do with your new life and form, and how you react to the other way people treat you now. As the Transformed, lots of people will attempt to shift your labels just by how they react to your appearance. You're the quintessential book, and your cover is pretty striking. Other people will judge you by it all the time, whether you like it or not. That was a really confusing sentence. Basically, you're a book that people like when in that saying. don't judge a book by its cover. You're the book that people are judging by its cover. There we go. I could have just said that. You can prove those people wrong, or you can prove them right. It's your choice. It's theoretically possible for you to change yourself back over the course of play. After all, anything and anything is possible within the city. But keep in mind that doing so will be very difficult, and you have no tools to point out such a path for yourself. And it requires you to change playbooks or retire your character at the very least. Your character's arc and struggles aren't really about trying to return to what you were. They're about trying to deal with what you are now. And some good characters that are inspirations for the Transform would be they kind of mentioned it earlier, but Cyborg in Teen Titans, Beast from X-Men, right? He turns into the big blue guy. Hulk would totally be a transform. I mean, that's like his whole thing is that he transforms, right? So those would be kind of the three inspirations if you guys have anybody to go off of. So those are that's the last of the main playbooks. We can get into the more difficult playbooks if you want, but that's really up to you guys. Did you want to get into any of them?
I might take a look then, just personally. I'm not too
Okay.
worried about it.
All right, so yeah, just go ahead and pull those pieces of paper aside then for you, and you can actually just go ahead and take those home.
Now, how do we, stop me if I'm jumping the gun here, but how do we want to address building our characters?
Are we
gonna come in with a character in mind, and it just, this is the party we wound up with, or are we gonna try to play off?
So at the end of the group, at the end today is when we're going to
talk, kind of.
Yep. At the end today is when we're going to start talking about what characters have kind of drawn your interest. So right now, since we've just finished up the playbooks, we're going to move on to the city. But kind of in the back of your mind, keep thinking about how the city and its development is going to impact the player that you want to play. All right. So the next part that we're going to be getting into is the city. The city that you guys are going to be playing the game in. And the city is called Core City. Simple.
Nice.
C-O-R-E.
Is that a
And
reference?
as I start telling you about the city, this is where we're going to start kind of creating different things. Oh, no, mine did that. Hold on. There we go. Mine did the little thing. I was only hearing out of my right ear that time. Okay, so as I start talking about the city, I'm actually going to be asking you guys questions, and we're going to start creating the story now. This is a creative building exercise, but it is going to impact our game. Okay.
Cool.
So to start off, the city is called Core City, and the main group of heroes that protect our city they're called the Core. And it's an acronym. It stands for the Court of Righteous Enforcement. And the reason why it's called that is because when the first group of heroes was started in the 1920s, everything in the 1920s was cheesy as fuck. So they decided to name themselves the Court of Righteous Enforcement. There was an event that happened, and it caused the city to change their name. So they were a different name before, and now they were Core City. So to do our first exercise, what was the city's name?
Yeah, I was about to ask you. Actually, I was going to ask what was the event, but anyway, no. What's
Core City.
Well, that's the city's name now.
the original name.
Oh, the original.
Yeah, what was the name? Yeah, this isn't me making sure you're paying attention,
Okay.
Walter. This
There
isn't
will
a
be a
quiz.
quiz at the end,
Yes.
yeah.
No. This is yeah, so what was it's not too important to the story, but what was the name of the city before the event happened?
Not everybody at once now.
Yeah.
Mm.
Just come up with a name.
I don't know.
I'm trying.
Chai.
Shy.
Shy City?
No, chai.
Chai?
Chai Town.
Like
Vanilla
chai titty?
Chai Town.
Vanilla chai latte?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where on earth would that inspiration come from? No.
So creative.
Can you cue the
everyone
Jeopardy
is
theme?
so-
What's that? Can you-
Doo-doo-doo-doo. I don't have the soundbite loaded up. I actually, I had the Wheel of Fortune one, but not this one loaded up. I knew I should.
I don't know. Expo City. What else is
Expo
around?
City. I mean, that sounds kind of cool.
Mm.
Oh, we were
You're
looking around for
around the-
inspiration. Phoenix
Yeah.
Dragon or
Phoenix and Dragon.
Yeah.
Shout out to Teddy.
Bear Town.
Bear Town.
That's what caused the superheroes to come out, is because they had to defeat all the bears.
All the
Yeah.
bears.
So they really had a big bear problem.
Well,
there.
now we don't have any more bears, so why do we need to call ourselves Bear City? I kind of liked Expo City. That was kind of cool.
You can thank the spray bottle on the whiteboard.
Expo?
Yeah.
Oh, dry erase? Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. So, back then in the 1920s, a lot of what superheroes were taking care of was like robberies, muggings, not anything too crazy. Everybody was, this is when superpowers were really just kind of first coming in there, getting into their own. Just like in the golden age of comics. Back then, they weren't really fighting against like world-ending scenarios or anything. It was just kind of simple stuff. And it was the same in Core City. But there was one event that happened, and a villain set a citywide bomb that was going to destroy the entire city. And this group of heroes came together for the first time to defeat the villain. You notice I said villain a couple times. Who was the villain?
Can you say that again?
Who was the villain?
Kyle.
Just villain name and powers.
The Smoking Man.
The Smoking Man. That sounds
No, I
pretty
don't
cool.
know. That's from X-Files.
Oh, X-Files? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
About to pull up like a random name generators. Somebody wants to play.
The Expo Man.
How do you pronounce that?
Let's use all the posters
Xenix.
on the wall. and come up
Xenix.
with something.
What? Oh,
Somewhere.
Xenix?
Somewhere in there. We're getting closer.
Xeno.
Fire. It's got to be.
Just fire?
Yeah.
That's the villain's name? Fire?
No.
Oh.
Like his power.
Oh, his power is fire.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's simple.
Xenix?
Matchbox on the wall there.
Nice, nice.
I mean, that's named after a car, but okay. Like the little Matchbox cars. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Actually, I know the story of why Matchbox 20 is called Matchbox. It's because they were at a diner and they saw somebody who had tons of patches all over his shirt, and the only patch that they could read was Matchbox.
That's a great way to pick a name.
That's
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Honestly.
I wish we had help like that.
I mean, you kind of did. You just actually did the same thing, except
Yeah.
just with Matchbox. Yeah. Yeah. So Xenix is kind of a cool name, and you said he's got fire powers. What kind of fire powers? Like, what can he do with his fire?
Or is he weapons based? Is it just fire?
He's able to like form it like out of like nowhere, but when there's a place with little oxygen, he can't really do anything about it.
Mm.
Every villain has a weakness.
His
His-
oxygen for some reason, or the lack of oxygen, just like a normal human.
He still needs water to survive.
Okay. So, Xenix, who had fire manipulation, can't create fire, but he set a citywide bomb, and the first group of heroes, along with my first hero that I created, character by the name of Blessing. And tell you a little bit about Blessing. She's been around since the 1920s. She doesn't really seem to age. So she's just kind of been around, and she was around before then too. She just wasn't like an active superhero. Her character's superhero name is Blessing, and her real name is Verena the Songstress. That's what she tells everybody her name is. She doesn't really she doesn't really tell anybody like where she came from or anything. Her identity is known as that. They call her Blessing, and then real name Verena the Songstress. Features: you got white skin, blonde, almost white hair. She wears a blindfold at all times with Roman-style robes, and she's always barefoot. She's a powerful magician, kind of like Doctor Strange, with a vast mythical knowledge, and her goals are to uphold justice and law and order. As she's kind of flying around, the equipment that she uses is just like floating scrolls, right? Like just rolled up pieces of paper, basically, and they just kind of float around her while she's fighting. She's seemingly ancient. She keeps kind of to herself in her study unless she's absolutely needed, and she had been known to kill before joining the Core, like killing bad guys and stuff. But since heroes have kind of come into their own as part of the world, it was kind of hard to convince her not to kill people. So she still like suggested it all the time, like, well, we could just kill him, but she doesn't really do it. and she travels by flying in magic portals. So she was the leader of the Core when they first came to be in the 1920s, when they came together to defeat Xenix, the fire manipulating dude.
Would you say she's still in charge? If not actively, do they defer to her for things, or is that like a...
They defer to her to things. She is not actively the main one in charge. She is not the Superman or Batman. And I do have different leaders as we go by. But that's a great question. Glad you asked.
I got one more real quick. What, she's been around since the 20s and perhaps much longer than that. What, when would you say we are now?
Right now, we're now.
Cool.
Yep.
That's easy to remember.
Yep, we are now. We are July 31st, 2018. Yep.
So this is 90 years, basically.
Yep. She's been around for 90 years.
90. Well, known for 90 years.
Known
basically.
for 90 years,
Yeah.
yep, at least. And she hasn't aged in the whole, 90 years.
Okay.
And would you say the prevalence of, or at least public awareness of powered individuals has been going on for about the same time frame kind of thing?
Yep.
Okay.
Also, does she always wear the blindfold, or is that her mask?
Well, like I said, her real name is, her name is Verena the Songstress. That's what everybody knows. She's not lying when she tells people that. That is her character's name. So, and it's, she wears it all the time. It's a straight up blindfold. So it's not even like a blindfold with holes cut out. She just wears it all the time.
Okay.
Yep. And even still, so that though that's the character that I created, don't be afraid to change it. You know what I think would be cool? What if she did this? Except for that character. No, I'm just kidding. So, who else? Let's create one or two heroes that were on the Core, with Verena the Songstress at the time. Any kind of heroes. And remember, this was the 1920s, so people didn't actually have seemingly unlimited power. So.
We can create.
Or
a
maybe they
character-
did. Or maybe they did.
We can create a character who's invisible when no one's looking.
All right, Mystery Man.
Invisible when no one's looking.
Yeah, that was that kid from Mystery Man. Did you ever see that movie, Mystery Man? Oh, the Shoveler and Mr. Furious and stuff. Anyway, there's a kid. His power was.
You guys are gonna have to make me a list of movies I have to go.
That's
catch up
it's a
on.
really shitty movie.
Oh,
It's
that's all
really
right.
bad.
I
Yeah.
like bad movies and I need references.
It's
So
got
we're-
Ben Stiller. He plays Mr. Furious. He's like the Hulk, except he doesn't actually turn into the Hulk. He's just mad.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You don't like it when he's slightly agitated.
Yeah, William H. Macy plays the Shoveler. He's just a guy with a shovel.
That's menacing.
Yeah.
You should
To
also
say the
watch Hobo
least.
with a Shotgun. That's a really good movie.
I haven't seen that yet,
It's pretty good.
but it's not a superhero movie. So
It's not. But he's a hobo with a shotgun.
That hero ideas. I don't know, man.
All right.
How
so
about a gunslinger?
a gunslinger?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's
Something a little
kinda-
bit more human than she apparently is.
Mm-hmm. Does a gunslinger have a name?
I don't know. I'm really bad at names, so I'm gonna pass on that
Or
torch.
something
She's like, I did the gunslinger
Italian
part, I'm
or
good.
something mafia related.
Something mafia. That'd be kind of
Yeah.
cool.
I was just gonna call him Clint, but yeah, what do you got? What'd you
I
say?
don't know, something mafia related. Obviously, if he's a gunslinger in the 1920s,
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
he was running booze and shit like that.
But remember, he is a good guy. So
Yeah.
he's probably not running booze
Well,
as a good
He's
guy.
probably
As a
drinking-
good guy,
drinking
yeah.
He's getting the
booze.
booze of the good people.
Yeah,
That's
good
are we in
people.
prohibition?
He's just
right now?
drinking.
Yeah, this is prohibition, so he's
Yeah.
probably not running alcohol. 'Cause he's not breaking the law.
Define good.
Yeah,
guy.
he's a hero.
We've all seen Punisher. Like Nunzio. Want to do
I don't
Nunzio?
know. Sure, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Works for me.
It's good.
How do you spell it?
Nunzio. I don't know. How would you spell it, Walter? Computer.
N-Y-N.
Does he have a last name?
Is
Is this character important? Do you want this character to be important enough to have a last name?
I guess if he was part of something of an event, yeah, might as well,
Can we add on that later?
Yeah. You want to add that
Sure.
later?
Yeah.
Okay. And then we'll just do
Don't
one.
have to,
What about
but-
Nunzio Eastwood?
Eastwood. That's where Clint Eastwood got his name in 40 years.
We got to make it just slightly different though. It's gonna be like Westwood.
Westwood.
East Westwood.
East Westwood. West. No.
West Eastwood.
East Forest. East Clear.
Southwestwood.
Southwest one.
North South.
I think the airline would sue us. Yeah. And then let's do one more hero. We don't have to give him a real name if we don't want to. Just one more. Just another hero. What kind of powers did they have?
Such imagination.
Yeah.
Maybe like I already did the gunslinger idea. I'm
Well,
just throwing
then
random
create
ideas.
You got good ideas. Throw them out.
Maybe like a superhero can change size or shape of some sort. Maybe.
Mhm.
Classic move. Yeah.
Someone who could just run really fast,
I like that one too.
like kind of like Flash-esque,
Mhm.
but
I do have a character created for the game that has super speed, so we'll save the super speed one for
Okay.
later.
I'm sitting here looking at these coasters, thinking the power could be something Sonic related. I like the height thing though. That's.
Make them giant. Just
I mean, is there a limit to these? How many people are on the core? Like,
Well, I'm just doing a couple. We're not going to do
just
every
to get
character.
started.
Yeah, we're not doing every character from the first core, and then we'll do like one or two more heroes as it
You like,
goes
like
by.
sound
The-
waves
yeah,
or
the
something
Sonic
like
relay
that,
was pretty
like
cool.
That kind of
screeching
idea.
or something
Yeah.
where you can't like supersonic screeching or something where you can't even be.
that whether
All right,
whether or not
Sindel.
it comes from internal or I was
Yeah.
thinking
Mortal
like there's plenty of instances where you use an instrument as a weapon in
Okay.
in that kind of context. Anyway, I can't
You can
speak for
only
any
use the
real-world
harp.
examples.
You're stealing stuff I already created.
Oh damn!
I actually had one. I have one specifically for Meg too, because she plays cello, and the character does that with the cello.
Perfect. Okay.
I remember. Yeah.
So we'll put
well,
yeah.
it
it
in
has
that
been
idea.
a long time since I've played. But
Is super strength already in there or now?
Well, I mean, you could just have a character that was like super strong. Like you had a character back then that was like that could like toss around, like not necessarily pick up and throw a car, but like
Mhm.
pretty close to
But
it.
he can pick up 2 kegs.
the 2 kegs. He couldn't pick up a car, but he could definitely pick up like a razor scooter. So yeah, so let's just do a character that kind of had above average strength. You know.
Cool.
What was his name? Superhero name.
Slightly above average man. No, all right. Oh, Samson.
Samson. Yeah, that's pretty
That's
dirty.
a superhero name.
As a
Not
superhero name?
That could be the alias. Not necessarily his name, but
So his superhero name Samson.
sure.
And his real
that's
name could be
pretty cool.
Simpson.
He's just Samson.
I
Yeah.
like that.
His real name could be
Simple.
Simpson.
People are like, "What's your real name?" Samuel. So Samson,
Son of Sam. No. All right.
son of Sam.
Son of Zam. Zam Zaddy.
Were we throwing the size ability or any kind of morph in there with that one as well, or is that just the strength guy?
We could do it. Well, how about this? How about the character kind of grows in size a little bit, and then with that he comes a little bit.
So it's like the levels of Saiyan, like you
Sort
get a
of,
little bit
yeah.
beefier, a little.
So, like, he
another
grows-
inch to your height.
KO
yeah. So he grows like 7 or 8 inches taller, and then gets a bunch of extra strength with that. How about that?
There's a character like that. I'm gonna think of it like 3 hours from now, and it doesn't matter. That's
Have the ability to grow 2 centimeters. Nothing else.
Okay. So there we go. So the core was started in the 1920s with the true core. They started in Expo City. Xenix, Gunslinger, and Samson and Blessing got together to defeat, Gunslinger, Samson, and Blessing got together to defeat Xenix, who was a fire manipulating villain, and he had a bomb in the city, and the city was so grateful they renamed themselves to Core City. I did Xenyx. I don't know if I spelled it the same way that it's on there. but
That's-
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
I can't, I literally can't even read it from here. So
You can't
just took
read?
it from here. There's I can't see it. It's not written anywhere.
That's your weakness.
Yeah. Let's see. The next generation of heroes in the 60s and 70s, still being cheesy, was called the Peace Corps. And the level of threats that they fought was a little bit elevated to past just muggings and robberies. But we had kidnappings, carjackings. They had to protect against assassination attempts on presidents. Failed pretty miserably with John F. Kennedy, but whatever.
I want my money back.
These heroes that came from the 1960s and 70s were so used to watching their predecessors kind of beat the villains into a pulp that they're focusing on less violence, more kind of like capturing criminals and taking villains down through basically other means. The leader who took over the Corps was a character named Musketeer. My next character that I've created. Musketeer is a known / unknown hero. Her real name is Jeanette Celador, and she's around 7 feet tall. With she basically wears like full plate armor that you'd see like basically a knight wear, but instead of a helmet, she just wears a musketeer hat. It's a blue hat with a purple feather, big old ponytail, and right now she carries a scabbard with no sword, and you see some kind of Native American feathers on her.
She's an Amazonian musketeer.
Sort of, real big, yeah, but not from
big.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Or not from. That name is called something, and I can't remember the name of that island. I can't remember what it is. Yeah, it starts with an H, I think. Anyway, so, and I'll delve into her a little bit later, but she was the leader of the Corps at the time. She took over for Blessing, and it's like you mentioned, they still kind of defer to Blessing for, questions and general help, but as far as who the leader of the Corps was in the 1960s, it's this character, Musketeer. And Musketeer was the leader for most of the Peace Corps period until somebody took it over, and that's the next character that we're going to create. So
Musketeer is unarmed though.
Yes.
She has no. Okay.
Back in the 60s, she had a sword. Right now, she doesn't.
Oh.
But back in the 60s, she was armed. Yeah, she didn't really use it a whole lot because, like I said, she was kind of that transitionary hero who was still under the leadership of the True Corps. So she was still into beating people down, and that's who the next character after her. And then she kind of transitioned to the Peace Corps where she wasn't beating people up anymore, and a character took over it from her. And who would be the character? Let's create one more character that took over for Musketeer. Somebody who would be currently running the current age of heroes.
More modern times. Wow.
Yeah.
Like elemental kind of power.
Okay. What kind of elemental power?
Ooh. I don't know. Initially, I was feeling electricity, but you all are welcome to jump in.
We can go with your gut. That's fine.
Is that an element?
Electricity? It could be an element.
I was thinking air. Air's pretty cool.
Maybe like storms, like
Yeah,
like
yeah,
electricity
like
or like
naturally absorbed electricity.
Definitely like a Storm-esque character.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right.
You can call her weather.
Flash has Weather Wizard, and he's like a pretty prolific villain, and he's one of Flash's rogues gallery.
Oh, cool.
What's the electric hero's name?
Apex.
Apex is a pretty cool name. You guys want to roll with that? Apex, the electric hero who took over for Musketeer. All right. So the reason why this hero took over was there was an incident that happened between Musketeer and 2 other villains, and those 2 other villains I've actually come up with already, and their names are wait, did I not write one for Sling Blade? Oh crap! I don't think I wrote one for Sling Blade. I forgot to copy it over. Okay, so I think I have most of her story in here. Okay, so Musketeer had kind of this arc with a character called Crossbolt and Sling Blade, and they were kind of a dual villain team. Crossbolt is basically picture kind of Green Arrow, but with a crossbow instead of a bow and arrow. Kind of a tactical ninja-looking character with a hood, and he's got kind of a mask just around his mouth and nose, so you only see his eyes. And then from either side of his head, you see some Native American feathers on either side. And so we'll tie that back to Musketeer. Crossbolt's partner was a character named Slingblade, another Native American looking character. She was a ninja looking character, but with a sword, right? I guess that would just be a ninja, right? Native American ninja, basically. And she didn't use a crossbow. But during one of their, I guess you want to say, skirmishes, Slingblade got a hold of a magic sword, and her and Musketeer were going at it, and Slingblade was killed in the incident. And as kind of a tribute to her, because Musketeer didn't necessarily mean to do it, that's why she has on her empty scabbard, she carries those Native American feathers. She carries Slingblade's Native American feathers. Due to that whole incident, Musketeer stepped down as the leader of the Corps, and that's when Apex, right?
Mm-hmm.
Apex took leadership and started to move the Corps into this kind of modern age. And the modern age of heroes is called the Power Corps. So we have the True Corps, the Peace Corps, and now the Power Corps. Now the Power Corps is definitely more used to taking on enemies of kind of a catastrophic sized threats, world-ending catastrophes, alien invasions, stuff like that. This is really where your big, strong heroes with a lot of power are going to really be coming in. So with Apex taking over for Musketeer, did people like that? What do you guys think? This is just kind of, do people like Apex as a character, the way that he's running the Corps? Do you think other heroes and the public like what he's doing, or do you think they dislike it?
I feel like it's been long enough that they like him now. Maybe it wasn't an easy transition, but maybe he's won them over somehow.
Mm-hmm. What was he not liked for at first?
Attitude.
His attitude. Okay. Expand on that a little more.
Maybe he's a little bit, maybe he came off really strong, like everyone's still transitioning, and he was trying to enforce the modern ways.
What are the modern ways as opposed to the old ones?
What are the old ones?
Well, the old ones would be at this point the Peace Corps, who are concentrated on trapping enemies and not really like beating them into a pulp, just kind of trapping, talking them down, stuff like that. So people didn't like that he wasn't into that way of thinking. Is that what you mean?
I think so. I think that's exactly what I mean. He just wanted to bring a new light when everyone's still kind of just stuck doing that. Maybe he wants to kind of shift rules. If that makes any sense. Depending on how bad the villain was, it would determine.
It should be situationally addressed. It shouldn't just be like a code of conduct you have to adhere to, because if aliens come to Earth, you're not going to ask them politely to leave.
He's like,
it depends on the aliens, I suppose. But
sign this waiver.
Especially since the events are more catastrophic and they're more, I guess,
truly
intense. So you have to maybe be more willing to.
So maybe towards the people that actually live there. Like if it's a villain within your society, then you treat them better than an outsider or an invader.
But basically. You have a rapport with your weekly repeat villain kind of thing.
yeah.
That makes sense. That opens up for the comical quips and the one-liners and these all your classic.
Oh, he's at it again. Oh,
he's at it again.
Yeah.
Oh, he's shooting up again.
More perhaps as a poor example, just based on his code anyway, but like a Batman Joker scenario kind of thing. Where it's they're always running into each other. They're always butting heads. Granted, Batman has its own no guns policy, but even then he's got other weapons that he's adapted to do. But you never see a Batarang go through somebody. You just see it pin them or just miss or something like that.
Clunk them in the dome.
Pretty much. No, my question, how old is Apex compared to the outgoing generation?
Apex would have started probably the like 1980s, maybe late 80s. So he's been around. He's been the leader of the Corps for about 20 years, 20, 30 years.
Okay, but what would we say? It
So
was like
he's
20
older?
when he took over, kind of thing.
25, 30, yeah.
So
That's
he's like
I'm less looking at his age now as like how young was he
70? Oh, yeah.
compared to these outgoing.
Almost.
Say about-
mid-60s.
So right now he'd
70.
probably be 60s, but he was probably about 25,
Okay.
25, 20, like 30, something like that when he took over.
Damn kids today.
So my next question would be, how did he feel about Musketeer failing in that story arc with Sling Blade and Crossbolt? How did he feel about the fact that somebody died as a result
Did
of?
he embrace that in order to get into power, and that's why people dislike him?
That's up to you. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm asking you guys.
Be. I was going to go to a similar place and like, did anybody try to talk, Musketeer out of leaving, or maybe he did swoop right in?
I feel like he would be kind of selfish
What, to do so, or just like
Just
his
swoop right
personality
in.
would be
to
that?
just swoop right in.
Yeah. So, well, John's asking, is he a selfish person, or is his action just that of a selfish person? Like, is he actually selfish? Would you think the character is a selfish person?
I mean, it could open the door for some interesting, like the good guys are actually the bad guys kind of plays, but
I feel like he
how
maybe
secret
let,
society
I would
do we
say,
want to get here?
I would say he just let his ego he saw the opportunity, so he swooped in.
Mhm.
But because he's also still young, that's why he just went for that opportunity. Just out of instinct, he just wanted.
Had to be, because anybody old enough to know better
Yeah,
does not
He's 25.
want
Does not
that
like
kind of
power.
problem.
yeah. He didn't really like. He kind of just went for it.
Mm-hmm.
And
What he
maybe
did.
like his, difference in the way he likes to deal with things. Maybe he didn't respect the fact that she was willing to step down over a death, where maybe he didn't feel like that would be something he would do. But he
Mhm.
took the opportunity to fill the space.
Yeah.
I'm willing to do
Mm-hmm.
those types of things, or that won't bother me. Let me step in. Maybe.
Yeah, like he's kind of in the, well, so what if somebody died? It was a villain.
Yeah.
Where Musketeer was like no deaths at all ever. I get what you're saying.
I
Ben.
could see that being a really good source of conflict, just as those 2 points. So what would we say? He's kind of like I don't know, more of like a brash personality, or a little bit more well thought out. Like, is he methodical?
Wait,
Is
now?
he
He
like-
jumped- he
What,
jumped
are
the
we talking
gun
about
and
now or
he's
back
learned.
then?
Are we talking like a young Lex Luthor, or are we talking like,
I don't know enough about Lex Luthor.
okay, a plotter, somebody that's
Plans 20 moves ahead.
Exactly.
Like I kind of get what you're saying, or maybe not what you're saying, but Lex Luthor, for example, would have put the whole story arc together that killed Sling Blade and made Musketeer quit. He would have put the whole thing together knowing that Musketeer would quit if she killed somebody. That's how meticulous.
versus is he the kind of person that like, so what this happened, you can stay in this seat kind of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like, I know Magneto's technically a villain, but he is willing to go extreme,
Yeah.
and that actually makes him a villain.
Versus
but
Xavier, yeah.
yeah,
For the greater good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which again, define the greater good for our kind, the greater good for your kind. That's
Yeah.
the whole thing is very.
Especially in X-Men, where they're like a completely different, they're technically a different species. Right? Yeah, it's crazy. All right, so cool. That's a lot of stuff that we created. So next thing that we're going to get into is there's an agency. I don't want to say that agency is even the right word, but think of this as Core City's like shield or Aegis from the DC universe. So basically like their civil division, cops, guys that like an intelligence agency that will give the heroes.
Different like bureaus of power, basically.
Yeah.
Something
So
like
this is like one bureau exactly. So what-
Is it branched like that, or is it actually like, is this just the group?
so there's the core, and then there's the one group, but they'll handle super related.
How messed
like-
up is this city? Does it have different factions with different protectors, or is this like?
Do we?
How big's the city for that?
Yeah,
matter?
exactly.
This
Like,
this city is supposed to be like picture New York to like Alabama. It's huge.
So
it's a big city.
So it's
So
a
it could
coastline.
easily-
It's
yeah,
not
almost an
yeah.
entire like the way that they describe this city is it's big enough to have everything. Like there's a
Okay.
beach. There's
So we're not necessarily
yeah.
landlocked either, but
Yeah.
we're also not like an island. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean maybe that was kind of a bit extreme the way I described it, but the way that they
That's the way it
described
is.
it is basically like
From New York to Alabama.
I want to go to the beach. Well, this place has a beach. Okay, well now I want to go to the desert. Maybe not the desert, but I don't know. It's a big city.
So like
It's a big
a
fucking
like
city.
a
It's big enough to have factions though if you want to have factions, which is really cool. Is that something you want to have?
It makes it more interesting, I guess.
Cool. So we'll definitely get into those factions a little bit later then,
that
too.
could play into the. Did we decide on Shady Seat of Power, or that was still kind of up in the air?
So there
as
is
far as
one.
him coming
What
in?
I was going to ask is, what's the name of it?
I kind of just like the corporation.
The corporation, like
It
Core
plays,
City.
It plays on Core City.
Oh.
Core
It's
City Corp?
Super ominous. Like Core City Corp is amazing.
Core City Corp sounds cool.
Corp City Corpse.
So that could also add on to, if the city has factions, it could add on to how Apex got in power. Because there could be heads from each faction, basically.
Mhm. That kinda like-
voting upon who got in the seats of power.
Just so many layers. Is it bad that I immediately tried to start building like a Gotham, just like a dark underbelly kind of city? Or
Yeah, and that
is
can
this
actually
like
be
a-
that can actually just be one faction of the city.
Yeah.
It's like there's a dark underbelly of the city.
The ghetto.
And so basically that, like I said, it's an intelligence agency to resource heroes, and they kind of like register villains as villains are caught. You know, try to figure out who their real identities are and stuff. Do the heroes like the corporation? Do they seem to be kind of generally well liked by the heroes, like Shield is, or are they kind of look down on like Aegis
I
in
feel
DC?
like they would like it because it would give them a lot of information and
Mm-hmm.
like if it'd be like their research, the stuff that it would kind of keep them from having to do the piddly stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Are we teamwork or are we button heads over jurisdiction? That's
Like when
I
a
guess
hero,
it's character
yeah.
based then.
So
One
you,
second.
It's character based.
so let's say the general like. So what would you say? Like 50-50 people seem to kind of like them?
Yeah, something like that, where there's still
Or
this
do
agreement.
or
There's
do more
within.
people seem to like them than dislike them? Do more people seem to dislike them than like them? What do
I
you
would
think?
imagine it's
They've done things
How
to get a
new is
bad-
this
bad
corporation,
rep.
by the way?
How new is the corporation?
Yeah.
We'll say they came around the Peace Corps time, since there was a lot of trapping villains and stuff. That's when they came around. Was in like the 60s and 70s. So they've been around a good like 60 years.
So I would
So maybe they
definitely
get
say they're
used to it.
trusted in the public eye.
Yeah.
So trusted in the public. That was going to be my next question: is does the public like them? So you think they're pretty well trusted by the public?
I would say so, and depending on how well they work with, what do we call them, the Power Core? Probably good friends here. I don't know.
Of course, you have those few like that don't like those vigilantes.
Yeah. Trusted by public and heroes alike, pretty much. Does that sound fair?
Sure.
Fair.
It would be neat though to see somebody take like a seat of power in the core with. Is that what's it? Okay. No.
Core City Core City Corporation.
Cool.
We'll just call them the
It
corporation.
does kind of have that agenda though to kind of minimalize the vigilante to put a restraint on the superpower, like the Sokovia Accords kind of thing. Which again all turned out to be Hydra or whatever. So
Yeah.
But,
Hey,
I don't know.
Well, cool. So we'll sort of get into the factions. Actually, I have a whole other section I was going to do, but the factions kind of sounds cool too. So we'll do the factions next because I like that idea. So when you say factions, Kyle, what did you mean by that? Can you expand on that a little bit more?
I guess it's different divided areas of the city is what I was originally thinking.
Mhm.
Areas where you shouldn't go if you are, from a certain area within the city.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's basically all I was thinking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So how would the factions affect the corporation and how Apex was voted in? Basically, like every
That's what-
faction.
are we talking like, what's it? Like divergent kind of factions, or are we talking like if you guys have seen Krypton? There's like the elites up in their towers, and then there's like the alley dwellers that are your average folk kind of
Or
thing.
what about like Teen Titans where they have
I'm
like there's
thinking
certain
more like-
towers like in different sections of the city that control or
Like,
save.
like
Streets of
everybody
New York
gets their
or
area.
gangs
This
of
is
New
your
York,
home base
basically.
for this
Gotcha.
area. You protect this chunk because the city's
Yeah,
surrounded.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
not a bad
like
idea.
what is it? Yeah, gangs of New York, basically, is what I was thinking.
Mhm.
Where
Yeah.
everyone's kind of on the same playing field. They all have the same stuff, and
But everybody wants to be the one in charge of all of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically,
All right.
yeah.
And so is that like city run, or is that kind of the factions are basically like unofficially run by the public? Because it seems like how would Apex get voted in if they were all kind of public like Gangs of New York?
Follow the money.
Yeah,
So-
'cause you could be bought. You could be bought, I guess, if you were a
That is getting political.
Well, maybe a
hero.
little.
If
I'm
you
sorry.
were some kind of superhero, you could be bought by each faction
Mhm.
and
Bought.
work for them.
Yeah,
I have
But then you
twisted
begin
this
kind of become a
beautiful
villain
idea. All right.
if you're bought.
I have
so
2 pens.
right.
Could
and a
kind
twisty
of
thing.
make
Yeah,
things
please take
complex.
this away. I'm literally twisting things. Okay.
Okay. Well, I like that. I like the way that he's describing it. So I'll try to expand on that a little bit more at home then. Okay. So the next part that I have planned out, I'm not sure if Meg wants to do. So that's why I have this part marked optional. I have a whole school system set up. And I know Meg had mentioned, what were your kind of issues about doing the school end side of this?
The role play, right? Was that what it was?
I guess it'd be the role play.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Like role
you
playing,
know,
going to math class and shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
like
so-
just being a
Or, like,
kid again.
Yeah.
Or being I'm probably as far from being a teenager as
You only get
when
further
I was a
away.
teenager. So
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it.
You just gotta talk in memes from now
Yeah.
on.
Oh,
That's how
God,
teenagers.
shut up.
Oh, okay.
Shut
And just
up.
every
No.
like
Should we
every
talk
other
like
month
you
or so
then?
make up a new word
Okay.
and just pretend like everybody knows what it means.
Like you gotta start using ill.
We all
and
have to talk
sick.
like Walter.
Bring those
Lit.
back.
Okay.
So, the way that I had the schools kind of planned out was going to be, I have like superhero schools basically. So as far as your day to day and class to class, I'm not going to worry about like going to math class and
Does
shit.
this play into the factions?
It can.
Where your school is located?
So you
It
have, like,
is.
And what
So
they-
the
these
main.
different football
what they
teams.
teach
and,
you.
like-
Yeah.
Do you
So
want-
these are like super schools. We're not just in with the rest of
Yeah.
mass population.
So you
These are
can go to
specifically
regular
for-
school, or in which case I'll probably I'll make you guys go to school for like one session. Won't even really do it the whole time, and then she picked a squeaky door, and then won't even do it the whole time, and it'll be like the first session we just kind of plan out what your school is basically, and then we just basically never come back to school. But that would kind of play against if anybody picked the character Janice, which school life is kind of a big part of that character, which is why I wanted to do this. I do have superhero schools planned that can easily fit into the faction thing. I've come up with a few different schools and what they do. If you guys wanted to hear that, if that's something you guys are interested in me running for the game.
Pitch it. Anybody else opposed? Let's go.
No?
All right.
Okay. So the main school that you guys would be vying for is called Pinnacle Preparatory. Preparatory. Yeah, Pinnacle Prep. And Pinnacle Prep, their mascot is the Champions. And Pinnacle Prep is named after the hero, Pinnacle. Pinnacle was a True Core hero, one of the first. So we're going to create the True Core hero, Pinnacle. Why was the school named after Pinnacle? What did Pinnacle do that caused such an impact for just him himself that a school would name themselves after him?
Is that like the golf pinnacle, or
I don't know what the golf Pinnacle is.
it's a brand? I'm pretty sure
Oh.
Pinnacle is like a brand of balls and gloves
Vodka.
and
No, pinnacle like the height of any.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the best it could possibly be. This is the
Yeah.
the pinnacle of
Mm-hmm.
creative ideas at this table, I guess. Sorry.
Maybe it would be a, gosh, what was that character called? A Nova?
Mhm.
Very, very powerful
Mm-hmm.
hero, possibly.
Powers wise, hell yeah. But as far as why, maybe
Yeah, why would a
maybe it was
school-
the school
yeah.
was on fire or something. I don't know.
And he saved the school.
Where you get the whole school held hostage.
Yeah, it's
That's
like-
pretty modern.
If he sacrificed maybe like a big, powerful outburst, would it maybe cost him like his life or something? But he like maybe one of those kind of things, like
Mhm.
a memorial type thing.
Oh, so like they named their school not because he like lived after, but he's gone and passed as a result of something
Gave
he did
himself to an
for.
event.
And was it for the school or was it just like
Well, if he's from the original, what was the
the
did
True
you-
Core?
No, the yeah, for the True Core. Before it was called Core City, we haven't established what that event was, have we?
Yeah, that was the bomb. That was
Oh,
the
okay,
city
you're right,
bomb.
you're right.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm paying attention.
Yep.
Paying attention at its finest.
So was Pinnacle part of that team, and maybe he used his Nova powers to kind of encapsulate the blast and killed him, and he
Might have been
died
the only
as a
one lost
result.
in that
Yeah.
event. That's fair plan.
Yeah.
You want to do that? Cool. So, what would make a superhero school number one? This is the basic, like I said, this is the school that you're vying for. What do you guys think would make this school better than other schools? What kind of things, what kind of resources would this school have access to that maybe a smaller school
Better than other
wouldn't have?
schools of
Jacuzzis.
the same type. Like
Yeah,
better-
another super. Yeah, why would this
Okay.
superhero school be better than another superhero school? What makes it better?
Maybe they were. Maybe it was built on the True Core, like the living members of the True Core, and like they were teaching from like they were one of the original teachers from that school, and they set the standards themselves on how to.
So they were your Gryffindor. And
Yeah.
Slytherin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the True Core members that I had, remember, was Blessing. Does she still teach there? Do you guys think she still teaches there?
She could
I'd
be
say
like
so.
could be like the Professor Xavier, just kind of like roams around and just
Mm-hmm.
making sure everything's intact and everyone knows him.
Okay. So True Core member started the school. Blessing still works there. Would you say one of the things I mentioned about her was she does kind of keep herself. She doesn't really leave her area a whole lot. So do you want to say that the school is actually part of like her sanctum, basically?
That's what. Is this like a castle-looking school? Is this
Yeah.
a modern-looking school?
Be
Is
like a
she,
modern-
up
no.
in a tower, or
It's
is
like-
she just in the office?
She's just
Like-
probably in the office, could do
The
computer work.
computer work. I don't think she does scroll work.
Is she like preaching her original like beliefs then too to the kids?
She could be like still trying to push them.
But to use it, I guess, for like good, if that's what she originally
Mhm.
was for,
Yeah.
instead of like
One thing I kind of was thinking about the city about this school is, and if you guys are okay with it, this school has a 100% success rate. No villains have ever come out of this school, which is one of the reasons that you guys are vying for it so hard. It's like if you make this
Are
school,
there actually no villains, or do we just not talk about
We
those?
just kill
No.
the ones that turn into villains.
they just kill them as kids.
All right.
No, that's I wanted to see if you guys were cool with making this kind of like a really pure school. Like they've
Pure.
never had any villains come out of the school at all, as far as kids that have graduated or
now,
anything.
what could we say they've done differently though to, for lack of a better word, guarantee that?
Yeah,
Like that's.
I don't know. What
Maybe
could you
it's very
say?
strict with who they
is that like a
let in.
selection? Yeah, like selection process is more strict.
Yeah, so it is like it's a prep school, so you do have to, like I said, you're vying to get into this school. So I would have like a whole thing for you guys to get into the school. So yeah, so there's a selection process. So maybe the selection process has something to do with like a psychology type of,
Absolutely.
or there's people with
or
superpowers.
at
So
least
maybe
the most rigorous
or
vetting
like-
kind of thing. Yeah.
Psychology.
The villains that came out were the best villains out there.
or maybe there's like a hero who has like fortune telling powers, and she can kind of predict a bunch of futures and picks the ones that have the least
Somebody that
amount of.
can at least read the true nature of somebody.
Yeah.
So kind of have like a blessing, do that in a way.
Okay, so that's why she's still at the school. then.
That
She
would
doesn't.
be cool if that was a power of hers.
Yeah.
From the scrolls and the blindfold and the. It's a very scales of justice kind of
Yeah.
look
That's
to
cool.
it.
She's the sorting hat. No bad apples.
Would we want to say they have, along with being a good school, maybe really good technology, maybe things that can enhance you?
Mhm.
I don't know, like radioactive spiders, if you want to be a Spider-Man.
Radioactive spiders.
If you
So they
wanna-
have kind of a lab that
a
like
lab?
a lab that figures out what people's powers are and how to enhance them.
Yeah.
It's called gym class.
Don't shower naked there.
Do not drop the soap.
Don't. Number one rule.
The super soap.
Super soakers.
What's the next thing? For this school, Musketeer is one of the teachers here. And for all of...
So that could be part of what makes it better anyway. You have a very prestigious...
group of heroes, right? Like Apex was probably...
staff, yeah.
Apex was probably from here too. Like all of the heroes that have led the Core have been graduates of this school.
Okay.
Right? Musketeer is a teacher there, and she's the face of like Pinnacle Prep, and she's always bragging about how awesome Pinnacle Prep is all the time. Like, this is where I went to school. If you want to go anywhere to be a hero, this is where you go, right? So that's kind of what I've got Musketeer as, and of course Musketeer was an alumni of that school as well. I did have who has been an alumni, but I think we actually I think we're pretty good for what we have right now. Apex. The people that started it, which I hadn't even considered heroes, started the school, but it seems so simple, and yet I didn't think of it. Yeah, so that's pretty much it for my outline for the city and for coming up with stuff. So there's actually a lot of stuff that we came up with.
There's a lot to work on.
Yeah.
Work with here.
Yeah. So what we're going to roll into next is I'm going to start explaining a little bit about how the powers work and how your actions, not necessarily your powers, but how what your actions are as the game goes on and what you can do. So here we go. The basic moves of the game. The basic moves that you're going to be doing, there's like 7 of them. Directly engage a threat, unleash your powers, comfort and support, pierce the mask, defend, assess the situation, provoke somebody, and take a powerful blow. So directly engage a threat sounds pretty simple. It's when you go to fight somebody. And fighting in this case could be fighting them with your fists or fighting them with words. Basically, if you guys are in a conversation and I feel like you're directly engaging somebody, I'll just kind of activate that move and you guys are going to have to roll for it. And that'll be 2d6 plus your superior, which is one of your stats. The next one is unleash your powers. And unleashing your powers isn't necessarily to fight somebody. It'll be to overcome an obstacle, reshape your environment, or extend your senses. So let's say Walter had mentioned earlier about wanting to do mind powers. If he's looking through a crowd of people and he wants to search for one specific person by just their mind alone, that would be an example of unleashing their powers. But if Walter's in a fight with somebody and he says that he wants to use his mind powers to make somebody go to sleep, that would not be unleash your powers. He'd still be directly engaging a threat at that point. The next one is comfort or support. Sounds pretty similar. When you roll comfort or support, you're rolling to make somebody feel better. And this is one of the ways that you'll clear conditions, like Meg asked about earlier.
Are we going to be dealing with influence as well?
We will,
Okay.
yes. Pierce the mask. When you pierce someone's mask, that's you're trying to get an idea of what somebody's doing just by kind of looking at them, seeing their true motives. And you'll roll that using your mundane. Defend. When you defend somebody or something from an immediate threat, pretty self-explanatory. You won't really roll to defend yourself, though. That's where take a powerful blow will come in, and we'll get to that here in a second. Assess the situation. Basically, it's what you'll use to ask me questions about what's going on. You'll say, I want to assess the situation, and then you'll be able to ask me stuff. Provoke somebody is you can provoke somebody by fighting them or provoke somebody by saying something. And it'll go by, if you're just kind of a kid and you're fighting like a big ultimate villain who's fought the Core for like 50 years, you're probably not, he's used to fighting people. He's probably not going to be provoked by one little thing you say. But if you're, going through a hallway and there's a security guard and you don't want to knock him out, but you want to provoke him into giving you his his little pass key, then that would be where provoke comes into play. You got a question, John? No? Okay, I thought you were about to say something. All right. And then take a powerful blow will be our last action. And taking a powerful blow is where your not necessarily hit points come in, but instead of defending yourself, I'll just say roll to take a powerful blow, and that will affect what happens, and it'll change how the story goes on. The next thing that we're going to get into is what a condition is. When a move tells you to mark a condition, mark any condition you choose. Sometimes the GM may tell you a specific condition to mark, or especially after our hard move, which the GM has moves, hard moves and soft moves. Or you'll pick one and you'll kind of explain to me why it happened. So let's say somebody surprises you and does a sneak attack on you. Your condition, you could be afraid because you didn't see them coming. You could be angry because you were supposed to be the one looking out for everything and you missed out on it, right? So that's just a couple examples. There's angry, afraid, guilty, hopeless, and insecure. And all of those will be minuses to certain rolls, and you'll keep those until you clear your conditions. And clearing conditions is kind of something we went over earlier. To clear angry, hurt someone or break something important. To clear afraid, run from something difficult. To clear guilty, make a sacrifice to absolve your guilt. To clear hopeless, fling yourself into easy relief. To clear insecure, take foolhardy action without talking to your team. The next thing we'll talk about is called your labels and how you'd be shifting them. Your labels are essentially your stats in this game. And I don't have them written on this piece of paper, but it's superior, mundane, freak. Everybody will have it on their own character sheet. It'll be superior, mundane, freak, savior, danger, and I think that's the last one. Is there 5? How many are there over there? I could open up my book and see, but there's 5 labels.
Yep.
5. Okay, so I got them all. And it's basically how you see yourself and how the world sees you. Do you see yourself as sort of a freak? Do you see yourself as kind of mundane and reserved? Do you see yourself as more of a savior? Do you see yourself as a danger to people and others and yourself? And do you see yourself as kind of the smartest guy in the room would be what superior is. So your labels are kind of set once you pick what playbook you're going to do, and then they'll shift later on. So shifting, it won't be just one of them going down. It'll be one going down and one going up. So you'll pretty much have the same number in there at all times. You'll never have more than a +3, and you'll never have more than a -2. So if somebody tries to shift a label that is already +3 and already -2, then you'll immediately mark a condition, and we'll talk to explain why. Influence. When somebody has influence over you, it means you care about what they do, say, or think. At any time, you can give influence to any character who doesn't have influence over you. So there's some where influences will come into move, but if you as a player feel that your character would just care about what somebody says after they said it, you can also just give that character influence. Influence, when you have influence over somebody, you can take a +1 to all moves targeting them. So whenever you roll, if there's somebody that cares about what you think, you'll have a +1 against them. When you choose to take advantage of your influence, which is a move, you'll be able to either give them a -2 on a move they just made, inflict a condition on them, or take an additional +1 targeting them. So this is where kind of like our pluses and minuses will come into play. When somebody with influence over you tells you who you are or how the world works, you can either choose or accept their influence. So let's say a character is playing as their legacy, and their legacy hero is telling them how they should act, and that character doesn't believe them or doesn't want to listen to them. That would be an example of rejecting their influence, and they would have to roll for that. And they could shift their labels, or they could just accept it, and they would shift their labels accordingly. The moment of truth, we kind of mentioned it in some of the playbooks earlier with the bowl. The moment of truth is you'll get a couple like end-all, be-all moves. When you unlock your moment of truth, you can activate it at any time. Read your moment of truth out loud from the back of your playbook and follow that script. In essence, you, the player, take full control of the narrative in this moment. The GM will let you know what consequences arise. So basically, you'll be able to kind of dictate what's happening as long as you aren't controlling other people's characters and what they do. So you can control what happens to that other character, but you won't be physically controlling what that character does. advancements are like leveling up in this game, and you level up by marking. Why is it blanking on me?
Some of the P. It's right. Is that the one you're getting at?
Yeah.
Potential.
Potential. I was like,
Hey.
man, why can't I remember the name? When you mark potential, a big part of this game, just like in real life, is you don't really learn from your successes. You learn from your failures. So after you failed a bunch of times, that's when you level up because you've learned from them, right? And you could take advancements. There's a couple different advancements you can take. The first one you can take is that moment of truth. The next one will be the next couple of advancements will be powers, and then if you felt that you've taken enough powers and you can take you've taken your character as far as you can go, you can make your character retire from being a superhero or become a paragon of the city. So in that case, you would draw up another character, and I would just start sticking your old character in the game kind of here and there, just like I'm going to be sticking the other heroes in the game. Let's see. The other stuff that I have listed on here, team mechanics. You basically have points that you can use to up your rolls, and you'll start the session with 2 of them, and basically after you've made a roll, if you like missed it by 1, another character can use one of those points to help you out, as long as we can dictate it in the fiction. Like if the other character's across the city, then he's not going to help you climb a tree, right? Stuff like that. He's not going to give you a plus to that. Not that your character will need any points to climb a tree, but a lot of the ways that I'll make you roll won't be for like mundane things. So like if you want to use your mind powers to pick up a toothbrush and brush your teeth with it, I'm not going to make you roll unleash your powers from that. You can just do that thing, right? But conversely, if your character's just taking on a bunch of goons, same. I probably won't make you roll for a couple goons. Your characters are superheroes. They can take out a couple bad guys, as long as they're not a bunch of big villains or anything. So the way that we'll roll will kind of differ from here to there. But it'll almost always, when you fail or succeed a roll, it'll almost always define what will happen next time. So to use an example, and I don't know if you've gotten to it yet, so I apologize if I ruin it. But there's a character in Nerds on a Rolls game called not the Meteorite.
Yeah.
And his character can absorb energy. And at one point in the game, he comes to a magical thing. Then he's trying to absorb the magical energy, and he ends up failing his roll. So from then on, they gave him kind of a -1 to absorbing magical energy because he tried it for the first time and figured out that he had a hard time doing it. So they just gave him a -1 anytime. They would remember that his character was kind of weak to magical energy, and it kind of just rolled into the game. So that's kind of one of the ways that we'll treat rolls. If it's something that seems particularly difficult and you fail it, we might use it to affect the game going on in more than just that one instance. So the last thing that I want to get into is what characters you guys, as we've kind of been talking, what characters you think you've been drawn to. So just to read over the list of characters again real quick, or playbooks, we've got the Beacon, the Bull, the Delinquent, the Doomed, the Janus, the Legacy, the Nova, the Outsider, the Protege, and the Transformed. So we'll go ahead and start with John.
Ooh.
Yep.
Okay, so part of me kind of wanted to wait and see what the rest of the group was going to do.
We can start with somebody else if you want.
I can start if you want. I have
Oh,
something.
Go ahead. I got a couple
Kyle's
ideas to play
got.
with. Go ahead.
Well, mine was gonna originally be the Bull. Mine was originally gonna be the Bull, but then we went over everything. So I was thinking like a foreign exchange student who lives with like normal people where he is or she is, and is understood necessarily by them, kind of, but not really. Like no one can really understand. Originally, it was going to be like language based, No one can understand what this individual is saying, but this individual understands everyone else, but can't
That's
can't
cool.
Can't communicate with them.
can't communicate, so then therefore gets angry. That's where the anger thing comes out when trying to like communicate and people aren't like picking up on it, basically.
And you wanted to do kind of the bull character through that?
I was
That what
thinking
you're
the
thinking?
bull, but then it sounds like the outsider. It kind of sounds like the outsider as well on top of the bull because the anger aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean the anger.
And the outsider thing I'm thinking could be, this person could be from a different city or, anywhere really. Just basically can't be understood.
Yeah. So a lot of the parts, one of the big points that comes with the bull is his power suite. So what do you think? Because the outsider, what do you think your character's powers would be?
I was just going for something like simple. I was just going for like strength or something. Just like rather just like, oh, there's a smart way to get to this door. Let's just make a new door.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Big fan of new doors. Big door fan over here.
There was what were they? Acquisitions Incorporated, right? It's a D&D group.
Okay.
And they do at the Penny Arcade Expo. They do what started as this, all the way up to like a full stage production, costumes, everything. But for a few years, they had this one character, Benwin, was a dwarf with a battle axe, right? And the whole thing, anytime they ran into a door, he chopped it down. Nobody ever opened a door. It was a beautiful moment. I like it.
So it does seem like your character is kind of leaning more towards the bull.
Yeah. And maybe even I was like something like that, whereas tries to be logical and tries to explain himself, but no one can understand what the hell he's saying, so he snaps.
Yeah.
Basically, and then does stupid shit like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool.
Keep in mind, I'm sure, I haven't looked through all of them, but I'm sure some of these powers seem to overlap. So strength you could probably find for your character anywhere. And
Yeah.
keep in mind, we are playing teen characters, so emotions are going to run high anyway.
Yeah.
Ideally,
I do.
So
I do like that idea of like not quite autism, but that kind of like
Yeah.
so he can take in the world around him fine. Yeah, he knows what's going on.
Yeah.
He understands what people are saying. He just has a hard time getting it out himself. And when he has a hard time getting out himself, is it because he's physically like his words aren't right?
It's not.
He
Oh no!
switches
Like
up?
he can like communicate properly, but I guess he can't learn like a new language. Basically, is the. It's not stupid.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's obviously intelligent, but the people around him can just not learn where he's from.
Gotcha. So what? Okay, that's
So
cool.
I
We
need to come up with more of a backstory, but
Yeah,
that's just
so-
initially what I'm thinking.
I like that a lot,
Yeah.
though. Foreign exchange student, understood by family that took him in, but
to
a descent.
a degree,
Yeah. Semi understood by family, not really by anyone else. And okay, that's pretty cool. I like that. What about you, Walter? We'll take you up next.
Oh man. Bring up the old notepad. Well, I guess I was just like telling you earlier. It's kind of refreshing on like my character.
Mm-hmm.
As I was reading over this, I was kind of feel like I was more drawn to the Reformed. It's something we didn't go over, but I kind of took the time to read it. Someone who just used to be a villain, but then eventually start switching sides.
And you wanted your character to have been a villain before, right?
Yes.
So it's not even he was rejecting his family's from the
We're gonna
very
have to
beginning.
hang out
Yeah.
with you outside of school. Then.
It's just something he
Yes.
just like sort of developed like when he started getting older. He just, and of course the emotion thing started to run up. He just felt like that wasn't what he wanted to do. He felt like that wasn't right, but most of his family's been doing it for generations.
Why don't you go ahead and, because I mean, you've told me about what you
Yeah.
want your character to do, but obviously everybody's like, what?
Like, what's
So
it-
go ahead and tell everybody kind of the character you had in mind.
Basically, I had a character who was from this like, what was it, like some underground society that kind of kidnapped and enslaved homeless people, and not a lot of people or nobody actually knows about them because they would kidnap people homeless people specifically, because nobody would really miss them, as selfish as that would say, but like most of his powers would be like a mind, like telepathy, kind of just be able to control and like read minds, and he's able to blend in with, he's able to dress as like a normal human being, so he's able to blend in. And
Is this a Soylent Green thing? What's happening with the homeless people? Are they getting eaten?
they're
or-
they're just enslaved. They're just like taken away to where they lived.
Okay.
Because I forgot, was it more of a goblin-esque character?
That's what you said. I mean,
Yeah.
it's your character.
Yeah, it was more of a goblin-esque character. So he kind of looks freaky, but like with a hood on, you don't really notice. And that's how far it really have gotten.
Mm-hmm.
So
Cool.
there's still more to be developed.
And you said you wanted to do probably the Reformed.
Yeah.
And you're saying like mind reading powers?
Yeah, so more Professor
So,
X.
but
than-
you would be in trouble if someone got in your mind, basically.
Or they would
From
be in
the
trouble.
sounds of
for
it.
getting
yeah.
in
So
my
let's
mind.
say that Walter did something and he failed his role.
Yeah.
And somebody is
and
like,
someone got in his mind and found out the dark truth about
"Yep,
those
Yeah,
homeless
true.
people.
That's to say that his character even hides that fact. If he's reformed, he might have brought a lot of this to light, and that
True.
might be he might face challenges just societally with that ongoing stigma of
How
oh,
how are we
you're
gonna
those-
fit that into the school if this school is no villains ever?
Well, the school no
no villains ever came out of it.
yeah. So
Okay.
nobody who's ever graduated has become a villain.
Okay.
Unless you guys don't want to do that. I think it's a cool idea, but gotta fix Meg's headphones again.
Oh, dang.
so close.
Okay, it's good. Oh, nope.
Just
Okay. Yep, it's there. Okay, we're good.
All right. Okay.
and then it cuts out again. Brilliant.
Brilliant. Okay. So how about you, Mick?
All right. Well, I guess the way I've kind of been going about how I always choose my characters with video games, and the last couple times I've played, I really like not being very human. I mean, I'm human all the time, so it's kind of boring to me. I like to look different, or to be alien, or to be, tiefling and all that kind of thing. So I was really gravitating towards either the outsider, or which would be like an actual alien, or the transformed. But I really like the outsider, and I kind of made a character that, I mean, I could change it. It's just like the first thing that came to my mind was an alien that is from another dimension, that's more like a energy based. I like the idea of density control as a power, and able to, like, I saw that you could have a Kirby craft, and that's one of the powers they could have, is being an alien, and like this craft is dimension shifting, so that's how she came to this world, is energy and moving.
You can even play that to start messing with time too, if you want to.
Yeah. And so I guess, yeah, that's about as far as I got.
Cool. I like that. The most important thing that I want to do today is make sure that we're all going to pick that you guys are all going to pick different playbooks, so you can go home and build on that playbook. I want to make sure that it's not 5 people trying to be a fighter.
Do we need to
basically.
go pick copies?
Yeah.
Are you good?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So when I was sitting down thinking about characters and what I wanted to play with this brand new game to me, there were kind of 2 main schools of thought that I fell into. One of them kind of wants to play the hero's hero, like sort of maybe a Nova-esque character, where I understand you're still young and trying to get everything under control. But again, a lot of the powers under that were pretty appealing. So that one would just be a fun character to play. The other way I wanted to take it was kind of a symbiote, kind of a cyborg, kind of your like Banner versus Hulk, or if anybody's in Adventure Time, like an Ice King kind of situation, where it's like you have this awesome power, but it's kind of a mix between Transformed and Doomed, where it's like the more you tap into it, the further you descend into madness. Or there's this duality where like a Blue Beetle character, where it's like, oh, I'm getting pressured up against the lockers, my other half wants to blow everything up, but no, don't do that kind of thing. So somewhere in either of those categories would be, I think, fun to play.
Yeah.
And I'm open to input if anybody has, like, oh, you should do this. Throw it at me. Don't make me decide. It's awful.
The second one seems really fun.
Yeah.
The Ice King one, that was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
that sounds pretty badass.
And then my question back to Nate would be, how do you want to play that? Do you want to have certain triggers for that kind of thing? Do you want to give me context to work with? Or should I just, I don't know, freestyle, split personalities kind of thing?
So, like, are you saying, would you want me to be your like, symbiotic kind of?
It would certainly make it easier for you to be
Yeah.
the other voice in my head, but
Yeah.
we can come up with a few of them if we need to.
Yeah. And that's also something that anybody here can just take control, like, anybody at the
Oh, yeah,
table could
totally
also
open.
just like, hey, I have this idea of what I think a character should do. Okay, well, then it's your turn. Then you be that character right now, and you be the one having the conversation with John. I really like that.
Kind of like a Sense 8 type
So
of thing.
we either get too powerful or too weak. Is that the
How do you mean?
like? Because your character is going to get written out at some point, basically. Is what you were saying. You either
Oh, for the
reach,
Doomed?
you either reach greatness or you fizzle
yeah,
away, basically.
yeah, but it'll take like tons of sessions before we even get close to that. Like, I think the podcast that I've been listening to is they're on like their 50th session. None of their characters have been written into that yet. Yeah, it'll take a while before we get there.
But if we change our minds as well, we can always
we can always
write it out. Or
yeah, I can always write that character out of the fiction. Something happens, I probably won't kill them because that's too big of a character. We've put a bunch of time in that I can always just throw back into the game. So I probably won't take them out of the game completely. But if you ever want to, or a couple of the advancements, you can actually just advance into another playbook if you want to. You could be the same character, but like let's say you're the bull right now, and just real quick, did you have an idea? Like, did you want your character to speak like a known language?
no,
No?
not particularly.
So let's say your character happens to find somebody magical that does speak that language, and now you've kind of figured out where your character comes from, and you want to be that character's protege.
Could play off of Walter's abilities to read minds to kind of know what's going on, as far as good and evil.
Mm-hmm.
And
That'd be
stuff
cool.
like that. Could play off of each other somewhat.
So let's say you happen to find somebody, an adult, that can understand you completely, and you decide your character wants to be that person's protege, wants to learn from him. Then
Okay.
one of your advancements, you can actually just start taking. You can do protege now, and so your character will be a protege, but he won't be as tied to the transformation stuff. Or what did you want to be? Which one? Bull. So your character won't be as tied to the angry stuff anymore because your character now has kind of an outlet to vent, not necessarily vent that anger, but what's keeping him angry isn't necessarily making him angry anymore, right?
Yeah.
So there you go.
Makes sense.
Symbiotic type character. Cool. Well, cool. So I think we've kind of picked what everybody wants to be then too. So there's not like I said, the most important thing that I wanted to do at the end with talking about people's characters is make sure there wasn't going to be like any clashing, like two people wanted to be the same thing. And it seems like there was that super quick just because the Bulls kind of everybody wants to be, it seems easy. But it's like,
straightforward character.
yeah.
That's,
so
I didn't know what I was doing, so
Yeah.
that's basically it.
that's what, like in D&D, you don't roll out as a spellcaster your first time kind of thing. It's like it's a hell of a lot more to keep track of versus like I'm a barbarian, I'm really strong and I rage kind of thing. I don't know. But this one is a little more in depth than that. They all seem to have a broad, like certain tiers of powers seem to be evident, but it's not like nobody's falling short in any way, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. It's not like a
You're saying it's like well-rounded.
sure. That's a
No.
good way to put it, actually.
And there's
Yeah.
it's not
Rounded.
necessarily like a character's like a tank. So you're not gonna have one character just kind of taking all the brunt of the combat. You're not gonna have one character who's gonna be staying in the back the whole time. So yeah, it is a very very well-rounded game in that
dig it.
sense for sure. You're not gonna get beat up because of the class that you are basically. Your class, each class doesn't have a weakness per se. So
The person might.
the person might, and the player might in how they react, or the character might in what type of person that they react to. Like the delinquent's character could isn't very good against authority in general, right? So they're not necessarily weak in rolls against authority, but the way that you're supposed to run your character would be, susceptible to, and susceptible and could mean going against authority at every chance possible too. So, yeah. So I think we're good. I think we got a lot of work done here. Got a lot of stuff written down. A lot of new stuff created. I hope you guys enjoyed at least the more creative parts of the game, because that is what we're going to be doing going forward. There's going to be a lot of, hey, we walk into a room. All right, there's 2 guards there. Does one of them have a name? Have you ever seen one of them at another place? Like, hey, look, it's Jerry. Remember when we...
I can't wait to see that element warm up a little bit more and get people more willing,
I think
more
once
ready
we
to
get
just
comfortable.
throw
Yeah.
stuff out
Yeah,
there.
it's still a little rough for us to like
Yeah.
come up with anything on the spot. Try
Yeah.
to activate
yeah.
our imagination.
Yeah, and a big thing that I'll be doing later too is if it's a character that's not like super important to the game, I will just have one of you be that character, like just be that NPC, and kind of off mic real quick, I'll just tell you what the goal is, and just you'll have that person, you'll be having the conversation with the other player about it, and hopefully they'll get to that goal.
You can cut out all the time where I stall to think about answers and stuff, right? Is that no.
I won't, because this
That's
is actually
40
I'm
hours.
only partly kidding, but yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm actually planning on this
Delete
is
the whole session.
this would be as available for a download later.
Okay.
Right. So we have all our sessions and Patreon download. You can download what we all sounded like the first time before we started
dig
really getting a groove for this character, right? So, all right. Well, thanks guys for joining us today on the pre-interview for our Mask game. And I will surprise you with what your team name will be. The Core City Cadets.
I like
Nods.
Head nods all around.
Nods. Nods.
Nods.